So are all set to go? Should we go to Ashir Zaid?
Good, Zaid. Are you recording?
Are we all good to go, Zaid? Ready? I want first to start by thanking Allah Azza for giving us a chance to be gathered in this beautiful time of the year and in this beautiful location, the house of Allah Azza. And I want to start by congratulating the Ummah for the victory that we have seen in the land of Syria. And I'm praying to Allah Azza that He will also honor us to be able to witness and please our eyes with the victory in Palestine. That has been said, inshallah, we will be talking today about an interesting topic that is taking most of my time as a professional psychotherapist. As some of you might know that I'm a registered psychotherapist. Majority of the time and the cases I deal with got to do with the family dynamic, and I do a lot of couple therapies involved. So this is not the traditional presentation of what's in the books of the traditional religious context or presentation to marriage, but rather it's more dynamic within the context of our Sharia. So this is something, inshallah, will be an eye-opener to those who are trying or planning to get married, and also will be an eye-opener to those who are married to improve the quality of their life in Allah. So we will be going through the importance of marriage in Islam, choosing the right partner, rights and responsibilities of both sides, and how to maintain a healthy marriage, and how to deal with the conflicts that could be arising in the relationship. Now, I would love this to be more interactive, so your involvement would be more helpful. And the same is to be said, by the way, for the sisters. And I was told that there is a mechanism for sisters to send their questions via the social media live outlet or texting the imam. But we want their input into this, and we will be leaving, inshallah, some time for this inshallah, for the questions at the end. So let me just quickly ask, what do you think the wisdom behind marriage? Why do you get married? What's the point for this? What's so special about it? Why do you get married? Especially those who are still not married and wanted to get married. Why do you want to get married? Besides the fact that this is a natural need, a biological need that Allah has created into you, that you need to fulfill. But there is something more beyond it. What do you think? Number one is sunnah, that's right, that's out of the question. Yeah?
It's basic structure for building society.
Basic structure for building society, that's a beautiful way to describe it as well. What else? Companionship, because naturally we're created, we're in need to have companions in our life. We created everything in pairs. The only thing that is one entity is Allah. He's different than his own creations. What else? Yeah? Yeah, procreation. That's true. Multiplication. But Have you ever thought of it as a project for Al-Jannah? Isn't it? It's a project for Al-Jannah because the only ibadah that starts in this life and continues to Al-Jannah is marriage. Siyam and Salah. Salah, you're done with it. Once you leave this dunya, there's no more Salah. No more Siyam. Charity, you do it in this dunya, the benefit of the charity will continue afterwards. The only ibadah that stays with you and you still are able to interact with it in Al-Jannah is marriage. As Allah said in the Quran, هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون. Isn't that what Allah says in Surah Yasin? والذين آمنوا واتبعتهم ذريتهم بإحسان ألحقنا بهم ذريتهم وما ألتناهم من عملهم من شيء كل امرئ بما كسب رهين. So you will be with your spouses in Al-Jannah. So the project you have started here will not end and terminate by the end of life here. It will continue to the Jannah. And at the same time, to be said about the issues that you mentioned. This is a salat al-janiyah. You start because when we leave this dunya, nothing is beneficial for you except for 3 things. Among them, right? So we need to stay focused on this understanding that this is not just a ibadah, or this is not just a relationship. This is the relationship that will maintain itself and will continue into the Jannah, inshallah. Therefore, we need to be selective in our process of, in the process of selection. We need to be careful in the selection process and get to understand, what is it. So we always refer to the Quran and Sunnah for understanding, what's this relationship is all about, what's into it. We know that this is the Sunnah of the Prophets. We know there's a lot of ayat in the Quran in which Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَأَنْكِحُوا الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ. It's not a choice for the guardians, to marry or not to marry their own bachelors, but Allah Azza wa Jalla is commanding them, is asking them to do so because this is a responsibility upon themselves. So, with that has been said, we need to stay focused that this is what we need to look at this relationship. Yes, besides the fact there is hormones, there are emotions, there are needs for us as a human being that we need to procreate, we need to intimate. That's something natural. We're not like the other creations of Allah Azza wa Jalla where things happen out of desires, out of drives, but Allah Azza wa Jalla gave us the hikmah, the wisdom, the aql, so we're able to understand how we take decisions in our life. So that has been said, in Islam, do you think that man is equal to woman? I know our Imam, is asking questions in this masjid, this is a provocative question. And especially to be asked in the masjid, how dare I to do this? What do you guys think? Someone is not is it? What do you think? Yes? No? Yes? Majority says yes? I say yes. Allah says in the Quran, المؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض. And Allah says in Surah Al-Imran, أن لا أضيع عمل منكم من ذكر أو أنثى. Now, we cannot stop right there, because if we stop right there, it will be like, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ. Do not approach Salah. So you have to, explain the context of what we mean by this. If we mean it within the context of the, Western perspective, then it's absolutely not right. However, when you look at it from, the lenses of the Muslim perspective, then we say the following: man and woman are equal about their accountability for their diverse responsibilities in life. That's a much more, accurate perspective to equality in Islam. Because if you were to say that man is equal to man, you're an illusion. You're not. This is not possible. Even, psychologically, they would tell you that's not possible. But biologically, we're created different. But Allah actually created us different for a purpose. Because Allah says in the Quran, وَبِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ. You need 2 legs to be able to walk. You need 2 hands to be able to handle things. So Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to be mindful of the fact that we are in need for each other in this life. The only one who does not need anybody is Allah Azza wa Jalla, as I mentioned. But for us as a human being, yes, we need to be mindful that we need others around us, and we are in need for a partner in life to be able to continue the mission that Allah has created us for in this life, which is creating the Khilafah. So the concept of equality between man and woman in the Western, perspective does not exist. But it does exist within the context of Islam by being aware that man is created in a certain way, and Allah gave him certain responsibilities in life, and woman also is created in a certain way and was given certain responsibilities in life, and both of them are equally accountable in front of Allah. كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. So that's a different way of looking at things and understanding the issue. So we say here in Canada, the secret of our strength as Canadians is our diversity. And the same is to be said, by the way, in the family. The secret of the strength of the family should be the diverse equalities and that each side brings to the family. Because, if you were to be both equal, then life would not be thin. It's like, like the second, you complete me and I complete you. The second image you see on the slide. You complement each other. You protect each other, and you do not compete with each other. Otherwise, this relationship will fail. There has to be a structure whereby both are able to connect with each other and will not be able to contradict each other. So now that has been said, and I don't think I need to convince young people, especially those who are not married, that they need to get married. This is something that many of young people are looking forward to. But to take that decision, you need to be aware of certain issues. Allah Azza wa Jalla has created you with this desire, but put some, not restrictions, put some conditions for you to be able to live this relationship or to create it in a more effective way. So, as the Prophet ﷺ indicated, يَا مَعْشَرَ الشَّبَابِ مَنْ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنكُمُ الْبَاءَةَ فَلْيَتَزَوَّجْ. Whoever is able to get married, and as a indicated, the ulama said that the physical ability, the financial ability, the ability to run a family, because running a family requires from you some skills. And you need to be able to run a family. That's why Allah just gave you the Quran. The Quran, Allah says, الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا. And then the other side, Allah says, والصالحات قانتات حافظات للغيب بما حفظ الله. So there is certain dynamic and certain structure in which why Allah Azza wa Jalla want this usra to be established by and to be running. So that has been said, there has to be certain way into creating this relationship. Now my message will be directed to those who are still not married and wants to get married, and many of them probably struggling to be able to get married. There are channels that you need to go through to be able to establish this relationship. By the way, in Islamic perspective, to establish the service of nikah or to establish عقد القراءة or الكتاب or nikah services, there are a few conditions that need to be met. Among them, for instance, is the presence of the wali. And we'll come to explain why it's important to have the wali. Many young people come to me and say, I want to get married. Sure, mashallah, I'm so happy for you. So who else is with you? I said, I'm by myself. I'm only with with the sister, and we want to get married. I said, well, this is so nice. Why don't you guys go down the street and meet, and have a date, and just this is it. They said, we went to so many messages and no one was willing to get us married. And I said, of course, no one will get you married. Because this is not a blind date, this is not a casual relationship, this is a relationship that has obligations and responsibilities that has roots into it. So the requirements for this nikah service to be done is to have the presence of the wali. We'll see why it's important to have the presence of the wali. And there is also an agreement in principles on the mahar, which is a salat that will be given a gift from the groom to the bride. The presence of witnesses. This is not a hush-hush secret in relationships like under the carpet, let's do it in secret. That doesn't work in this way. So there are regulations and guidelines that needs to be observed into risk, to do it. Now, the big question always comes: how should we do it? Because when you dig deep into the minds and the hearts of the young people, especially growing up in Western societies, they will tell you, okay, fine, you're not asking us to intermingle with the opposite gender, and you're not asking us to date, but how are we going to get to know, the other side? How can I make sure that this commitment of lifetime would be sustainable, would be workable, would be, good for me? And that's a good question. It's a legitimate question. So the typical question comes to us is, arranging for marriage should be done in the traditional arranged marriage perspective, or should it be in a dating relationship, which is very common in this society? What do you guys think? Young people. Arranged or dating? Which one is more sustainable? Which one is more workable?
I think both are okay. Look at the goal is achieved and things are within boundaries. Because, arranged marriage, if the parents is like one person and the son agrees, it's great. What you call it, the dating, the word is halal dating. I think if both parents, the two partners, are more than that there is a relationship and the end goal is marriage, if things go successfully, and things happen within the respective boundaries, I think it's okay. This is my opinion.
So I guess what you're saying, it's arranged marriage, but within the context of the Western society.
But we need to understand, especially in the West, we need to understand, right? Because, I always say, you can always over-promise, like this, over-promise and then less deliver. You promise so much during the, remarriage and then when you get married, nothing to deliver. That's why conflicts start happening and then the process.
Like, yeah, so I agree with you on certain principles. What you're saying is actually arranged dating marriage within the context of arranged marriage. So it's a hybrid, system. So now you'll be surprised to hear this. I did write once a paper about the role of marriage into. Do we need this? Are we good with this, or is this not enough? So I prepared once a paper about the role of marriage into integrating the personality of teens. And when I was doing my research, I come across this, and this is research done by non-Muslim, researchers. They said arranged marriage is much more stable than dating marriage. Bingo. Does that, surprise you? Now, I'll give you some of the experiences I have dealt with over the years of counseling I have done. I have Muslims and non-Muslims coming to me for counseling, for therapy counseling, for couple therapy or marriage therapy. People will be coming to me who have dated for years, but then once they get married, after a short time, they come because they're contemplating a divorce. And I would ask them, okay guys, listen, you were dating and for many years, but now when you sign the contract, now you're divorcing. Why? And I heard from one of the sides the following: when we were dating, we were lovers, but when we signed the contract, then we got to understand the reality of this relationship. When the rubber hit the road, I got to understand who's the other side. And I found that the other side is not a perfect match for me. So the context of dating within the Western society is not a perfect system for creating a sustainable relationship. So halal dates versus not halal dates. What do you think? I love dates. Who doesn't love dates? Muslims love dates because we enjoy them always in Ramadan. For us as Muslims, when we intend to go to this into this serious matter in our life, we need to keep in mind that people have 3 levels of the personalities. Now, the first level of personality is what you would see normally Okay, so let's go back. So the first level of personality is the physical appearance of individuals. Now let's say we know that the Prophet ﷺ told us that tabassumaka fi wajhi akhika sadaqa, right? Your smile in the face of your brother is a charity. Why? Because when you do the smile in the face of a person, people will feel comfortable with you, and eventually over time they will come to like you. Now we do have this tendency as a human being to be conditioned in a certain way. Now with the emerging of this, sophisticated power of media and televisions and social media, people now are able to create or to be conditioned in a certain way. Many of us probably have watched a movie and we were amazed by one of the characters in this movie. Rambo in my era, or any of those movies. You will build the image or perception that a person who likes, who fits within the context or the image, has a physical image of that person, will click automatically and make you feel that this is the person that you have interacted with. You can have probably in the past interacted with certain person, and that person build a perception in your mind. I'll give you a personal experience of mine. When I was once driving my daughter to school, she said, "I hate Orange Day." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because every time I see a nun, I become overwhelmed." Because I remember with the movie we watched in school about what happened in residential schools for the indigenous people. So every time I see a nun, I become terrified. And I was trying to explain to my daughter that this should not be the case, because not all nuns are what you have seen in that movie. But eventually she becomes conditioned to hate all nuns or to think of all nuns because being abusive. And vice versa, you can have an interaction with a person with certain feature and image, and you become more comfortable dealing with these people. Love from the first sight. How many of you heard this term from before? Love from the first sight. You heard it, right? Do you believe in it? Absolutely no. Why? Because the first sight brings back the image from the back of your mind of an experience you had in the past. And it's not necessarily going to be the same. I had countless stories of people who literally would be bringing pictures to their families, or to their mothers in this case. I want a girl like this. And then they find them a perfect match. And then after that, the marriage doesn't survive. Why? Because it's based on physical appearance. So this is the first level of personality. The second level of personality would be how much knowledge and skills you possess in your mind. And you're a person who is educated, you have skills, you have knowledge, you have understanding to the deen, especially in the context of the deen, because we always, من جاءكم دينا فالله دينه وخلقه فزوجوه لا تفرق الفساد فتنة في الأرض والفساد كبير. If the person of the deen comes to you and do not get him married, then mischief will be spreading in the earth. Now, what's important to understand is knowledge by itself is not enough. You need to understand how applicable the knowledge that the person has in life into the practical life. When Umar al-Khattab asked a person to go to bring someone who knows him, he brought someone from the masjid, and Umar al-Khattab asked that person, he said to him, "How do you know this person?" He said, "I saw him in the masjid every day. He comes and prays, and he's very devoted to his salah." Umar al-Khattab told him, "This is not how you know people. You know people by interacting with them in dirham and dinar, because when you deal with people with money, you really expose them." This is the true concept even nowadays. How many problems we have in our community when two brothers, two people who are in the masjid, but when they do business together, then eventually their business go with the problem. Also, Umar Khattab said, you know people if you were their neighbor, because neighbors at all times were like brothers. That's why the Prophet said, give us recommendations, also the job. So neighbors were very interactive at all times, and they know their individuals, their neighbors. And at the same time, if you travel with them, and traveling at all times is unlike traveling nowadays. When you travel, for instance, from Mecca to Medina, nowadays it takes 5 hours to 7 hours by bus. At the time of the Prophet, it takes days traveling on camels. So people would be exposed in their traveling. So the point here I'm trying to make is when we try to match in relationship with marriage, we do not go with the first level, the physical appearance only. We go to the third level. And this is where comes the importance of having the involvement of people like your parents, whether like your father or mother, and most likely if you're a boy who wants to get married, then you go to your mom and talk to her, and she will be looking around because she would know all the girls in the neighborhood or in the family who could fit within the understanding or your own understanding for life. And she would know exactly how these girls live their life. But for you, when you meet them for the first time, oh, I saw that girl coming to the masjid. She's wearing a khimar or niqab, she's dressed in a certain way. And you thought, this is it, this is the girl I want. And I've met so many young people like this. Well, did you talk to her? No, I'm not supposed to talk to her. Well, did someone else talk to her? No. Well, how would you know that she's going to be a good fit for you? So here comes the help for people like mothers or parents. Like, look at Umar when his daughter got divorced, he was looking for a husband. Look to Shu'aib alayhi salam. When he met Musa, he proposed for him to marry his daughter. Why? Because it's the responsibility of the guardian to help those who are single to get married. So the matching in Islamic tradition or in the arranged marriage comes from the third level, and then as the Prophet ﷺ asked the young man, he said, I proposed for a woman from Al-Ansar. He said to him, did you see her? He said, no. He said, go and see her. So often the matching is done on the third level. We go to the first level and look into the physical appearance. If we like, alhamdulillah. If there is no likeness, this is it. But it's much safer and much more stable to go that route than from going by dating, doing the traditional, the non-traditional way. So this is, by the way, this is an image. Does anyone know what's this setting for? Anyone knows? Arabs? Yeah? Jaha. You know what's Jaha? Yeah, Jaha. This is it. Jaha literally is what you see is one side is probably the groom side, and the other side, the one who's standing, is the groom side. And the other side are the bride side. And what they're coming to do is they're coming to propose for the group, the bride side, to their own extended family member or their own tribal member. So in this process, you will see that this is not a business between two individuals. This is a business that gets the whole community involved, which means if anything goes wrong, the whole community will be interfering and dealing with this issue. So the person, if the groom were to do something that's not appropriate, then his own people will be saying to him, listen, we were there and we were the purpose for you to get married, or vice versa, and they will be forcing the person to straighten up and behave in a responsible manner. So marriage in Islam is not a union only between two individuals, it's a union between two families, or a union between two extended families or tribes. And as Allah said in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We made tribes and nations to get to know each other. Look into this. This is probably another culture where the elders will be going for the purpose of proposing for a girl or a boy, so that for a relationship of marriage. So this is a very serious business, and it's based on solid, concrete principles of selection, not like what we see in the Western societies. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, Surah Al-Furqan, وَهُوَ الَّذِي مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ هَذَا عَذْبٌ فُرَاتٌ وَهَذَا مِلْحٌ أُجَاجٌ وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخًا وَحِجْرًا مَحْجُورًا وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ مِنَ الْمَاءِ بَشَرًا وَجَعَلَهُ نَسَبًا وَصِهْرًا وَكَانَ رَبُّكَ قَدِيرًا. Translation for this ayah is Allah Azza wa Jalla, He is the one who merges two bodies of water and create between them a third entity. It has unique features different than the two sides. And Allah after this ayah speaks about marriage. He's the one who created human from water and created from the human two relationships. Nasab, what's nasab? Arabic speaking, what's nasab? Nasab is your own heritage. your parents, your grandchildren, the one that comes from your own chain. As-sahar is the one the relationship that will be created after marriage, the in-laws. So what's the connection between the two buckets of water and the connection between marriage and Islam? Allah is trying to explain to us that marriage is not a casual relationship. It's a connection between two large bodies that creates a new entity, the same as to be said in the relationship of marriage. So this is, the case in traditional societies. Like, what about in our own now syndrome? Now, many of the young people here come because they graduated from back home, they went to work here, or they finished high school back home, they went to study here, and they settled here and they want to live their life. Who is going to help them to get married? There is no mother, no father. So how are we going to handle this issue? And many of our even youngsters who grew up here in this society, we do not have that connection that back home, that we have back home. How many times do we get into the masjid? We only come to the masjid for Jum'ah, and we come to the masjid in certain events, but there's countless number of families who might not even know the masjid. So the connection between the community members is very poor. So there has to be a new mechanism whereby bachelors or single people will be able to find, the right match. And here comes, the Muslim matchmaking apps or halal dating as we call it. I personally, speak about it. Like, you'd be surprised to hear me sometimes talk about this. Because I know there are people who are getting into their 30s. People who have gotten to their 50s, 40s. And they're not married yet. Why? Because there's no one to help them. They don't want to do haram. They don't want to go to, dating. But so who's going to help them? So there has to be a certain way to do it. So yes, I am, in favor and trying to remove the stigma about halal Muslim matching processes. And by the way, there are businesses. The other day I was doing an in-house service in Toronto, and a sister came to me and she gave me her business card. I said, what do you do? She said, I do matching services. I said, Allah bless you. We need more services like this. Because there are so many bachelors nowadays who can't do it by themselves. They have no family members. The community is no longer connected as it used to be in the past back home. So there has to be, a way to do it. Like, now that has been said. We go back again to square one. How are you able to tell if that person you meet will be matching for you? Now, when you read the profile, you'll be able to find the second level of personality. Someone is saying, this is who I am, and this is what I'm looking for. Bingo! There's a big match between the two of us. Is this enough? No. Why? Because this is the second level, and when you look at the profile picture, this is the first level. What do we need to look? The third level. How we can get the third level done? Here comes the need for, first of all, salat al-istikhara, when we come back to it in a short time. But here comes the importance as we have an emerging need to do this matchmaking process in the traditional, untraditional way to go down for pre-marriage counseling. There are many studies done that pre-marriage counseling adds more stability to marriage down the road. And by the way, in certain cultures, like I know in the Catholic tradition, the priest would not get the couple married before they get their pre-marriage counseling. They say, go get your pre-marriage counseling, and after that we will do the ceremony for you. So now, as an emerging need, we need to do more pre-marriage counseling. I do a lot of pre-marriage counseling, and I have a couple who doesn't only come for just one single session. There are a couple who have so far come to me for 5 sessions, and they're still exploring to find out the possibility and the reality of whether they do have matching on the third level before they were satisfied with the first and second level. And this cannot be done by the imams. It has to be done professionally by the professional counselors. Because as I said again, we do not have the same mechanism back home. There are no neighbors. People here don't know their neighbors. We don't deal with each other. We rarely see each other in certain occasions. So there comes the importance of coming to professional counselors or therapists and do pre-marriage counseling because they have the skills to how to be able to penetrate deep in the minds of each side and how to see if there's potential. Now again, here comes salat al-istikhara. We know that salat al-istikhara is important, But you know, in many, almost all the cases that I've dealt with who come to me for pre-marriage counseling, istikhara is very confusing for them. I did istikhara 10 times. I'm still confused. Why are you still confused? Because there's, you know, debate between your heart and your mind. And that debate would not be, you know, settled. This is why you need someone who is with wisdom and skills to help them be able to see through and be able to understand how to deal with this very difficult issue. Now, istikhara, by the way, as Allah, the Prophet taught us, اللهم إني أستغفرك بعلمك وأستغفرك بقدرتك وأسألك من فضلك علي. When you consult with Allah, you consult with Allah with His infinite knowledge. And when you empower yourself, you empower Him with the knowledge of Allah. Many young people come to me, I spoke to her family, they don't want me to get married. I spoke, you know, to his family and they don't want us to get married. I said to them, khalas. Why do you fight? If there is no way through, don't, you know, push for it. If there is a way that Allah wants it to happen, it will happen. Because Allah is the ultimate, you know, He has the ultimate power. So, do your istikhara, and the istikhara works the following. It's not that you do istikhara and you wait and you go to sleep. Many people are from istikhara and sleep in long hours. I did not see a dream. It doesn't work this way. It's not only by dreams. If Allah wants it to happen, it will happen. If Allah does not want it to happen, khalas. Be content and satisfied. أما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين وأما الجدار فكان الغلامين في المدينة وأما السفينة فكانت كذا كذا. So put your trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, infinite wisdom, and let Allah be the one who chooses for you. Because Allah knows this, and you don't know very much. Now, with that, we will be shifting to talk about the second part of this presentation, which is post-marriage presentation. Now, should we pause now for questions and answers, or should we just go quickly for the other one, and then, from there, inshallah, we'll end up having any questions? I think we should continue, right? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please. I told you, I came across a study, arranged marriage versus dating marriage. The arranged marriage is much more successful. Why? Because it's based not on emotions, not on hormones. It's based on principles and facts. See, marriage is like in the Quran. Allah has just spoken about marriage. Did ever the Quran speak about marriage using the word love? No. However, love is mentioned in the Quran. Right? However, in the context of marriage, it does not use the word love. You know, من آيات خلق أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة وعاشروهن بالمعروف. So marriage is not a concrete, solid, ground to establish a huge structure like what you said earlier, because this is the foundation block of the society. So you need to build a structure of solid, concrete ground, not on a shaky, loosey ground. Emotions are elastic. Love is emotions. Emotions are elastic. You need solid, concrete ground to build this huge structure that was brought on it, so you can have a beautiful structure for society. Most of the time, shaky grounds of love and affection, all the details, they will wear out for a short time. Because life is up and down. There's in the first few. By the way, I'll be introducing this. In the second presentation, we'll see that the most challenging time of marriage is the first 6 months to a few years. I'll explain to you in a short time why. Because this relationship is not only about emotions and love and lust and the hormones. It's about establishing a family, establishing a love for the society. So let's inshallah go to the second presentation. Are you ready, Zayd? Are we presenting now the second presentation, right? Okay. So now, and as I said earlier, that the most challenging, unlike the perception that is promoted in our community, honeymoon, whatever it is, all the details, they say, I get a plan for a beautiful happy honeymoon. And and they spend, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars into the first, on a honeymoon trip. Some of them go and debt, to do that. They think this is it. It's illusion. This is a relationship, as I said earlier, you started it to continue in al-Jannah. This is ibadah. You know what's ibadah? Like coming to the masjid, because Allah spoke about salah. Subhanallah, in Surah Al-Qur'an, he speaks about salah, and then about the creation of a human, and then after that, he speaks about marriage. What's the connection? Allah is telling you that this is ibadah. You come closer to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And that's what the Prophet says in the Quran. Ya Rasulullah, with this we get rewarded? Yes. Because if you do it in haram, you get sent for it. So this is, we need to keep in mind. Why is the first a few months or a few years very, very challenging? Because this is the time where you're coming out of your own traditional way and coming to live a new way. And to do that, there's a lot of need for you to be patient and communicate and adjust. And most of the time, people would have difficulties in these, and most of them, even like many cases come to my attention. They get married for a few months and they want to divorce. Okay, hold your horses. Let's try to figure out why. And most of the time, it's coming from the lack of understanding for the adjustment process from living a single life to living, a marriage life. So normally in couple therapy, I always look into 3 dimensions. And this is what I want many people to pay attention to, because this is an eye-opening and educational for the bachelors, but also it's important for those who are married. The 3 dimensions I always look into is the gender differences, the personality differences, and the intercultural differences. And I'll explain to you what I mean by each one. Now, there are differences, as we said, between the way Allah created man and the way He created woman. And Allah has said, as I said in Surah An-Nisa, الرجال قوامون على النساء وفضلوا بعضهم على بعض وما أنفقوا فالصالحات قانتات حافظات للغيب بحفظ الله. So Allah clearly said that there's certain dynamics, certain features that each sign has different than other sign. So we need to understand these differences to be able to understand how to live our life. Otherwise, people would be clashing. It would be competition. It would not be complete complementation. It would be confrontation between the 2 sides. One of the most important things that I have noticed, clearly across the board, with those who have been married or those who are trying to get married, is the lack of understanding to the communication process between the 2 sides. Now, in general, men don't like to talk. This is who we are. We like to hide in our cave. Most of the time, when there's a gathering, when the sister is this, I say to them, brothers, your husband wants to come and talk to you. The first thing they do when they come home, he doesn't talk to me. I said, that's wrong. We don't like to talk because we're rational beings. Allah created us this way, qawwam, because you always have the burden, the heaviness of the difficulties on your shoulder, because you feel you're obligated to take care of the family. So men like to internalize their feelings and their thoughts and work them out. And that's why they say we like to hide in our cave. When we hide in our cave, we work up our thoughts. And when we're able to overcome them, we come after that and we deal with things in our life. It's quite the opposite for the sisters. Sisters like to vent out. They want to let their energy out. If they do not talk, they'll explode. And if you do not listen to them, some brothers are laughing, and I'm sure that the sisters right now are laughing. Some brothers, if you do not let your wife talk, your life is miserable. Alas, we're doomed. She is going to talk no matter what, and you have to listen to it. So you can understand how Allah created us. Allah created women as empathic beings. Let me just quickly go here and come back to it. Allah has created sisters to be empathic and created us to be rational. So go back again to the communication. Men don't like to talk. We rarely communicate. We don't express ourselves. We don't like to share our feelings. We rather want to internalize things, because think of it this way. I remember the first time when I came home after I had a fight in school. I was like, I was like saying, why is this happening? This is, nonsense. And then, my mother was accommodating me, trying to shower me with empathy, and quite the opposite of my father. He was like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you stand for yourself? And he always beat me up. So that's not to be right. We're brought up since our childhood to numb our feelings and not to express our emotions, because this is what will make you a man. Even though we don't, the Prophet ﷺ himself cried. And I remember one of the Shaykh gave a khutbah about how the Prophet ﷺ who used to cry in certain emotions, in certain emotional ways. When his grandchild died, and on certain occasions, he didn't express his emotions. So there's nothing wrong for you to have feelings and emotions. But this is a built-in feature for the sisters, not a built-in feature for the man. So men don't like to communicate and vent out their feelings, quite the opposite for the sisters. And sisters just wanted to vent out their feelings. And if you as a husband listen to them and want to correct or fix the problem, you're not doing a good job. They don't want you to fix their problem. They just want you to be present with them and listen to them. That's it. Because they're venting out their feelings. And that's why they like it to sit with each other. Like maybe right now, the brothers are all tuned. If you go to the sisters' sides, they're listening, but then at the same time, they're talking. This is how they do it. They're able to do it. They're able to multitask. We don't know how to multitask. We're very task-oriented. Now, that has been said, why it's important to understand, because you're living together. This is a life. You have responsibilities. You have a family to take care of. So if you're unable to understand the way you communicate with each other, then there's a problem. And there are mixing messages that normally would be between the two sides. Oh, I gotta do this so we can do this. Or oh, I gotta do this with her, she can do that with me. Most of the time, the sisters do things that men 90% of the time interpret it wrongly. I remember in one of the cases, a sister said to her husband, if you're a man, divorce me. He said, I'm a man, you go, you're divorced. And I started crying. You don't love me. A man does not understand that when she said to him, divorce me, she is saying to him, I am frustrated, I'm outraged, I am so angry, I want you to listen to me. So the brother on the other side said, oh, you think I'm not a man? Here you go. I think we are divorced. The wrong way to understand the cues that she's presenting to you. So you can understand that sisters are empathic, emotional, they need to be careful. That's why the Prophet said, Richmond be gentle with the vessels. So also we're different in the way we think, the patterns of thinking. Most of the time, brothers look all the time and think all the time, about the future. I gotta think about how I'm gonna take care of the family. I don't think about the present moment. I think, 1 year or 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, how my life is gonna look like, what are the future of the children. The sister wants to make sure that everything is cozy, everything is nice, everything is, is beautiful. That's why they like spending. It's not that they love to spend, but they want to enjoy the moment and to create a beautiful environment for us to be able to enjoy. But there has to be a balance between long-term and short-term. To be able to understand how we can navigate things in life. Because, this is how Allah created us. I can bet you, all of us, how many of you love shopping? I hate shopping. If I needed to go shopping, I would be having a list in advance of what do I need to pick up from the store. The Prophet is not like this. And I visualize in advance which aisle is each item in and where do I need to go and pick it up. And I just blindly go to each aisle, pick up the item, put it in the basket, and leave right away. I remember once going shopping with my mother. Ya Allah, Wallahi, if it's not my mother, I would like, oh my gosh. She said, I gotta scan every aisle. I gotta scan every shelf in each aisle, and I gotta scan every item in each shelf. Mom, but they're all the same. They're different, they're not back home. Back home you can do it because there's something good and something bad. Like when you go pick up vegetables, you have to scan and look for the best. Here it's a standard, this is it. This is good, this is bad, this is medium, this is it. Now anyways, so there are different patterns of thinking that we need to pay attention to. Men think with their mind, women think in their hearts. So that's something we need to keep in our mind. You know, they think in their heart, and we love in our mind even also. So that's something big difference between the two sides. The strength of a man comes from not his muscles, from his rational understanding. As the Prophet said, the strong is not the one who he beats or uses muscles, but the one who is more rational and compassionate. Quite the opposite with the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, how women have a very powerful strength that overcome the strength of the man. As I said again, Allah will give this ability and tendency for sisters because they're going to be mothers, they're going to be sisters, they're going to be daughters, they're going to be wives, and if they do not have these skills, they will probably not be able to do their job properly. And quite the opposite of said, Allah put the qiwama in the hands of the man, and that's why Allah says, what is it that Allah has given to you, did not give it to her? They've given you the qiwama the ability to be more rational and more capable of handling the challenges and difficulties of life. In traditional societies, men will go outside the hunt, women will be taking care of the family, and there are two different responsibilities. Personality differences. This is also another huge area that comes to my attention. There are, by the way, 5 different traits in the human personalities, and they overlap. But sometimes you find the brother introvert, the sister extrovert, and that creates a problem. She likes to go outside, enjoy outdoor activities. He likes to sit at home and just watch TV. There's different personality traits between the two sides. If you're able to understand these differences and explore them, then you reduce the chances of clashes between the two sides and help to create more decent harmony between the two sides. Intercultural differences is also a very important concept. Because let me give you an example. What's this? What is it? Watermelon. طب in Arabic, what's it called? بطيخ. What else? ولا الناس الجماعة السورية شو بسموها هذا؟ حبحب ورقة صح؟ وجبسة. دلاع. There you go. So these different names just for one item. So we need to keep in mind with intercultural differences, there's always differences on the way you view things. Always talk about it. Anyone from Iraq here? What do you have normally for breakfast? The traditional, dish for breakfast. Bacha, right? Oh, bacha, right on. Bacha is the cow and lamb head. Cow feet and lamb head, right? And it's served in an elegant way, and it's eaten rightly in the morning as breakfast, because you need to start your day with a lot of energy, especially in the winter. Now, in other cultures, for breakfast you have falafel, hummus, fool, toast with butter, or toast with bagel, toast with cheese, with cream cheese. It's all breakfast. But it is, seen in this way as an essential way to start, a day. Another thing, this is how, you need to start your day with a light meal. Two different perspectives. Who's right and who's wrong? Everybody's right, no one is wrong. So intercultural differences are important to keep in mind, that when you have intercultural marriage, or even within the same, country or with the same city, you are impacted the way every one of us is, is influenced or shaped by the family dynamic we have seen in our own families. Your expectation to your in marriage life will be coming from what you have seen in your family. And most of the time with couple therapy, I will dig deep into the childhood before I'm able to understand what's happening in the present. And I will do it separately so that each side is able to speak their mind. And once I go to the childhood, I'll be able, that makes sense. There you go, now we figured it out. And from there, you're able to get to understand what's happening in the present. So these are important things, in couple therapy. Now we're going to conclude inshallah in a short time because it will take a long time. In couple therapy, I say always to the couple, I am not It does not concern me who's right and who's wrong. Because what happens most of the time with a couple, they come to me and they're preparing themselves to do a presentation. Like the brothers normally have a list of things they want to say, or even the sisters, and they want to make sure that they do it right. So they, make sure that they persuade me the right way. I said to them, listen, it doesn't really matter for me. You're coming here to me and you're paying money because this is a paid service and it's covered by extended health insurance most of the time to those who have benefits. I said to you, coming here to me and you're not going to the imam. The imam most of the time sits like this. Astaghfirullah. How dare you? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? I said to them, I'm not going to say that to you. My job is not to give you, what Allah says and what Islam says, because the interpretation of what Allah says and what the Prophet said could be valid from one side to another side. What's important is to figure out what is really wrong in the relationship that needs to be fixed. So this is, couple therapy is not going to Judge Shuraih. Judge Shuraih, this is a famous judge in Islam, or this is, you're not going to the courtroom. And unfortunately, as I said, most of imams, with good intentions, they make it look like a courtroom. Everybody presents themselves properly, and the one who has more persuasive, points, they're able to convince the imam that they are right and the other side is wrong, and that becomes more problems. I remember, one of the couples, which many times, mostly the brothers, they come to me saying, I'm not shaykh ibn ayat here. You did not do so. You're not a good shaykh. I said to them, when you came to me, I did not say to you I'm a shaykh. I told him I'm a therapist. But I'm using also my skills as an imam to make sure that the therapy process is done within the right premises of Islam. So it doesn't, I told you from the beginning, it doesn't concern me who's right and who's wrong. I'm trying to help you understand what is really wrong in the relationship between you and your wife. So most of the time, what happened between the couple, it becomes a war. It becomes, worse than the conflict between the Israelis and the Arab, and and it becomes, a very difficult things to deal with. And most of the time, the way to deal with it would be very easy. Just lower your guards, and keep in mind that Allah has created this relationship for you for a purpose. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. If you go back to this concept and principle, most of the time you're able to resolve the problems. But of course, resolving the problems of the perception and the psychology and the dimensions that involved with it requires some expertise. With this, inshallah, I'll be stopping the presentation and inshallah, giving you the chance to ask questions or comments, and we'll take it from there, inshallah. As I said, alhamdulillah, the brothers here are very interactive with us. I'm sure that the sisters on the other side would have some comments or questions to ask. So please, whatever mechanism, you can go ahead and send it to us, inshallah. Brother in the back, go ahead.
One of the questions I have is, you quickly glanced over it, and it's like, how would you get to know a person before marriage?
So how do you get to know a person before marriage, and what are the boundaries and limits? Again, if you are in traditional settings, or if you have your family, your main line or the first people you should utilize are your parents. Talk to your parents, because as I said, your parents know you from childhood. They know what's your personality like, and they know what fits for you. Now, if you are a person who's doesn't have family here because you're coming by yourself, all the details, an immigrant, or you're living with your family, but because of the lifestyle we're living, you feel the train is passing you. So the alternative way to do it is to go to those matching services, Muslim matching services, and it's not for losers. It's now the must. So we have no choice. How otherwise you'll be able to find a mate? It's not possible. So you have to use these services, but with caution. Again, you can do the first, the first level and second level of personality. Look into their profile, look into their picture, and all the details. But do not be fooled with talking on the phone or meeting in person and think that you'll be able to understand them. You will not be able to understand them by only talking on the phone or meeting with them in person. You need to find someone who's able to help you. In traditional societies, would be, your parents or your family members will be reaching out and asking about that person. Many times, as an imam, people come to me, do you know X? Yes, I know him. He's a member of my congregation. He's introduced, he's coming to ask for my daughter's or my sister's hand. What do you know about him? And I will be honest and give them all the things I know about them. But unfortunately, we do not have this mechanism. So again, as I said, if this is the case, then it would be to seek pre-marriage counseling. Pre-marriage counseling would be an effective way to help both of you be able to see the blind spots. Because when you are, using these techniques of meeting or communicating or talking on the phone, you're under the influence. Emotions are dictating, you're the process, and emotions are not enough to help you understand the other side. Most of the time, clashes happen because emotions, as I said, are feelings. They're not real. So there's always debate between your mind and your heart. And this is why you need external help, whether it's a family member, your mama, your mother, your father. In this case, a professional therapist who can help you be able to do it. Yes, sir.
As you mentioned, we go through the cycles of counseling before marriage. But when you mentioned that in some cases it goes beyond 4 or 5 sessions, right? So how does this fit in the life of Sunnah? Are we not trying to imitate the Western culture and adopt something from them rather than Sunnah? Are we not going in that direction as well?
Well, again, let's put it this way. The brother is asking about pre-marriage counseling and how it does take some time. Are we not replicating the process of meeting someone in those societies? Now, as I said, in traditional societies, people know each other, the parents will be involved, but now in this society, people, both sides, boys and girls, graduate and they get into the workforce. And they almost forget the notion that they need to get married. Why? Because there are some families around, but not enough. Now, what's the percentage, or what's the Muslim population in Canada? We're probably 1 million. Now, how many are there in your own city? And how many from your own city are from the same cultural background? And how many from your same cultural background are, from the closest city or the closest culture to you? So the process becomes very, very difficult. So yes, of course, there are families come to the masjid and meet and interact with each other. But what's the number? What's the average number of families here in this masjid? 100, 200? This is not enough. And when you're back home, there are thousands. And the process will be much easier. This is why, again, that we need to deal with this unusual situation with an emerging, way to help us be able to deal with this. I'm telling you, there are many young people who have felt that the train are fasting. They're in their late 20s, their 30s, 40s, and they're unable to find someone. Rightly so, because they don't want to go to halal, but how are they going to do it? So alternatively, we need to look for a different way to help them be able to get that process done, inshallah. Yes, brother.
You mentioned premarital counseling. Is there enough of a infrastructure to these people exist? And do they have to do you recommend that they get listened?
You mean the prerequisite for the counselor? Yeah. Definitely. We're now. By the way, when I talk about therapy, one of the things that always, I always try to highlight. Many people come to me and they say we got sick of going to the mainstream therapy because the context of the therapy does not fit within our culture. So definitely, if you're going for pre-marriage counseling, it does not work when you go to a non-Muslim therapist. You need to have a therapist who understands your culture. They need to understand the concept of your deen. Because, as we said, this is not a relationship that is based only on hormones. It's a relationship that is based on principles of the deen. We're creating an usra. An usra, the family, is the foundation for the society. And this is the ibadah that will come closer to Allah Azza wa Jalla, and this is what will pave the road for us for Jannah. So this is something definitely out of the question. You cannot do it with a non-Muslim therapist. They need to be, and those who claim to be multicultural, whatever it is, I don't think they will be able to get the full picture. So that's out of the question. Yeah.
I guess that's my question. Are there enough of those kind of specialists around?
The time is yes. There are alhamdulillah new, but majority of them, of the therapists are still new grads, and they're still young. There are a few, alhamdulillah, have taken this as a profession and become more experts in this area. But nevertheless, like even with young, therapists, they still have the knowledge. They have the basics. So the chances would be that they're able to do something better than going to the ministry. Because when you go to the ministry, you're basically lost. Yes, indeed, alhamdulillah, things are changing, and now more people are emerging and accepting, and more people. I remember 27 years ago when I started doing, when I was doing my degrees, people were laughing at me. Do you expect yourself to be able to be dealing with this? I said to them, inshallah. Yes, Zaid.
There's a question like online.
There's a question online. So the sister said, as a woman who wants to get married, her mother is encouraging. However, her wedding does not agree to it. What to do in this case?
A typical scenario when a young woman wants to get married, she meets someone, and most of the cases it's the father who disagrees. Now, in this case, I would strongly recommend for people with these situations to reach out for help, to reach out for a specialist, a therapist, where a therapist will be able to communicate with the father. Now, there will be times when the father is adamant. This is it. My mind is fixed. I'm not going to do it, or I'm not going to agree. Should we go against the will of the father? In my assessment, no. Because from Sharia perspective, the marriage would be nullified. As the Prophet indicated to it. Now, there are some imams who would say in certain madhab, if the wali, the father declines, then the imam can play the role of the details. I'm not going to get into the fiqh perspective into whether it is permissible or not permissible. But I'm talking from the perspective of psychosocial perspective. From my experience as a therapist, most of these marriages that go against the will, the chances are not going to look good at the end. Chances that they will have a relationship, but that relationship will not survive. Because the minutes, when a father wants, disagrees, they don't disagree just because they feel like it. They have points of concerns that they feel that it's important for them, to be met in this relationship. Yes, sir.
What exactly is the definition used of arranged marriage here? Because, for example, you brought up the hadith of the companion who was asking about a girl from Ansar, and then Allah said that he knew more about her. This doesn't necessarily strike me as something as like an arranged marriage. I'm looking at the academic literature. It seems to be they seem to categorize into arranged marriage versus free choice. So, and it's driven by who is initiating it. So, what exactly is the definition being used here for what classifies as an arranged marriage?
Okay, in traditional societies, let me tell you an example of how it works. Let's say a young man wants to get married, he reaches out for his mother, I'm ready, I want to get married. The mother starts looking around. She would be looking around in the close context of the girls around her. She most likely knows the girls since birth because she's watched them growing. Or she would be reaching out for other families and do the matching based on the third level. How we can say it. They say in Arab good as well, right? There are secrets at homes. The women are able to understand and to know the dynamic of the family. Like when a woman looks into the family of the other families, they would be able to understand the dynamic. And if they see that this dynamic fits for their son, they will be reaching out and then after they feel that the third level of personality is met, they would normally ask the boy to see the girl. If he sees the girl and he likes her, then they proceed with the process. Does that make sense? So the matching starts from the third level. If the girl is not from a good, quote unquote, good family, this is it. There's no point for pursuing any further.
But that also applies to a free choice marriage, as exactly that term here. Like, for example, just say, if person man A is interested in woman B, then it's not the parent she, it's maybe the person, the man A will say, I'm interested in this woman. Then we can start discussing with the parents, and there will be discussion there. In this case, it seems more of a non-arranged marriage, but it's still going through the same, mechanisms of discussion between the parties.
You mean the challenges comes from afterwards when the parents refuse?
I would say that's kind of not necessarily part of the it's more of
Why don't you come closer, because I'm having difficulty hearing you. Yeah. Now, let's make it very clear. Dating marriage is based on the concept a boy like a girl, they date and they live romance and they decide to get married. And after a short time, most likely this will not survive. Arranged marriage would be done in a way that the matching would be on the third level. Like the mother would be looking for certain families who have certain qualities of tarbiyah, and then eventually they say, okay, this family here is a good family. They have a girl by this, for the age of marriage, and they probably will give a picture or they will ask them to go visit the family and see the girl. If he likes the girl, they pursue after that in the process of marriage. If he does not like the girl, this is it. But the matching will be from the families of the qualities.
But what I mean is that, okay, let's give us
But how about if we just go to the question and we'll talk after offline? Inshallah. Yeah, go ahead.
So online there's a question. In case of divorce, if the wife leaves the family home without husband's consent and files divorce, does husband have to pay back to the wife? If the family court rules husband to pay spousal support, there is also a child and husband has to pay child support according to federal law. What could be the consequences of not paying mahar to the wife who left family home with the child without consent?
Now, if I understood the question correctly, it talks about the event of divorce, what's Islamic and what's legal. Right, Azay? Most likely this is the question. So this is a very common issue that, when there's a dispute between the two sides and they decided to, end the relationship and divorce. Now, should we go with the Islamic laws, or should we go with the land laws? Now, this is a very, delicate issue. If they both have agreed in principles to end and nullify this relationship after they exhausted all the options, because in marriage, in Islam, there are different processes for nullifying the marriage. It doesn't happen haphazardly. And there's, حكم من أهله وحكم من أهلها, فأجروهن وضربوهن في المضاجع, and then حكم من أهله وحكم من أهلها. And then if that didn't work, then they go to the process of divorce. Of course, in Islam, والولدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين لمن أراد أن يتم الرضاعة والمولود له رزقهن كسوهن بالمعروف. So the child support is out of the question responsibility of the father. However, where the challenge comes is from the dictating of the land laws into certain areas that would be having conflict with the Sharia law. And my recommendation with this is always resolve your problems before you reach the legal system by either going to an imam or to a therapist and trying to diffuse the tension between the two sides. Most of the time, couple end up going to the legal system because there are unresolved feelings, and they try to revenge from each other using the legal system. And this is very unhealthy, because the one who will be paying the price are not out of sight, it's the children. Keep in mind, children are the biggest victim, the silent victim as I call them, in marriage conflicts. And they're the ones who will be paying the most price. So my recommendation is trying to resolve your issues amicably. As Allah said, Imsak bil-ma'ruf of the street of ihsan. Imsak, to stay together, ma'ruf. What's ma'ruf? What's commonly known? Walakin, when Allah says about resolving the relationship, what tasrih bil-ihsan. If you want the divorce, let the ihsan be done, the divorce will be with ihsan. Not taqwa, not iman, but ihsan. The highest stage of taqwa. So this is how Allah wants us to be dealing with the issues of disputes in the family. Yep. Yes, sir.
The same person on your answer is saying, I was ordered to pay spousal support for 3 years, and also wife asked for the money. I felt that was unfair. Do I have to pay that Islamically?
Again, the question that comes all the time, comes because there's a package to it. Even with the qadi, the Islamic judge, you would have to listen to two sides and listen to the details. You cannot only look into the surface and give an answer to it. My recommendation again to people who are suffering, in divorces or family conflicts, is trying to look for a therapist who can help you to deal, with these unresolved feelings and diffuse them. So you're able to, introduce a new chapter in your life that will be more effective and less painful and traumatizing for the children. Because the children are the ones who will be paying the most price. There's something called parental alienation. This is exercised normally in conflict, in conflicted marriage. And as a result of that, children will be, suffering a big deal. And that's why in these situations, many of the cases, people come to the imam, they want to use the deen into getting what they want, in their mind. I always tell them, the deen cannot be used only in your favor. Look into the details. Umar Khattab said, if someone comes to you with a damaged eye, look for the other side. Maybe the other side has 2 eyes damaged. So there's always a need to look to the 2 sides and try to resolve the problem in an amicable way. May Allah have rahmah on the Muslims and the Muslim community. Unfortunately, these are very common things happening in our community, so we need to deal with them in an effective way. What is Shaykhuna? I have no problem to keep going, but I'm mindful of your time. We're okay, Shaykh Muhammad? Are we good? Alhamdulillah. Can we see the brother first? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to share a medicine ayah for the marriage that I find, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surah al-Islam, says, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, وأزواجكم عدو لكم فاحذروهم."
No.
It's interesting that after he worded why is your enemy, he says, the order of the same.
Exactly, it's true.
It's to let go.
Afu was pardon. No. He's saying that Allah has mentioned that women and children and wealth are fitna. Therefore Allah is saying to us at the end, Fa'fu wasfahu. Be forgiving, be compassionate. And again, unfortunately, it's that the lifestyle, the land laws, as well as not the lack of the ability to be governed with the Islamic laws. Not to say that I don't want to be misquoted, but when there are 2 standards, it becomes too confusing. And the best way to deal with it again is to rather than going to the legal system, go to the compassionate system or psychosocial system and help resolve your differences, so you're able to create a new chapter, even if you decide to divorce. There's nothing wrong with that, It's divorce is mentioned in the Quran. There's a chapter about divorce in the Quran, but it has to be done in a way that will be least harmful to the children, because the ones who will be paying the heaviest price are the children.
It's interesting that verse that I quoted is before the chapter of divorce.
That's right, there you go.
It's the medicine for that problem.
Subhanallah.
someone online asked, some families do not allow their children to marry someone due to that person being from a different culture. Perhaps that is why so many people have difficulty getting married.
Now, some families do not like to marry their children from people of other culture. Now, I do agree in principles with this. However, why the perception is that marriage, intercultural marriage, is not successful? It's simply because of what I presented in my presentation. There are different practices, but if the couple are able to understand these differences and willing to accommodate them and work them out, there's nothing wrong with it. The Ansar and the Muhajirin were able to coexist with each other, and the mentioned hadith I was mentioning, did you see her? It's a Muhajir who wants to marry an Ansari girl. So this was not an issue when there is a tolerance and understanding and willingness to work out the differences. But most of the time, people have built perceptions. Intercultural marriages are not successful because there has been some cases where things did not work out properly. So this is, I think, my answer to this question. Are there any other questions before we conclude?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Is a woman allowed to divorce her husband for any reason?
Are women allowed to divorce their husband for reasons?
Or does she need her husband to divorce her?
Okay. Again, divorce is initiated by the man because the man is the one who initiated the marriage. And the nullifying of the marriage would need to be done also the proper way. There are procedures to establish a marriage, and there are procedures to nullify a marriage. Now, in Islam, it's not, what do you call it, a trap relationship. You're not trapped the rest of your life. If you feel that you're unable to continue this relationship, then you're entitled as a woman to go to the judge, and the judge will be listening to you, and based on the rationale of your presentation with the judge who are trained to be, more objective in their process, they can grant, the woman a divorce. But again, from most of the cases that I have dealt with, the issues can be resolved in an amicable way if they were both to just put their anger and resolved feelings on the side and try to look more objectively into the issues. Yes, of course, there are differences in the personalities, there are differences in the gender, intercultural differences of the upbringing, of each side. But this is a relationship, that is so sacred that Allah said about BCMA. Now, do we expect things to be perfect in this dunya? It should not be perfect because this is not Jannah. Jannah is there when we leave this dunya. So maybe part of what we're struggling with in this life would be through our relationship. Let's keep that in mind. I always say this example. Like if you have a child with a chronic sickness, you would not abandon your children. You would say, "This is my qadar, this is it. I need to look after for my child." Now the same is to be said in this relationship. There will be times when we say, "Okay, this is it. There's no point for more suffering." But did you try all the channels and the processes that would help you to open the channels of communication, resolve your bent feelings, and educate both sides? If you have tried that and it didn't work, this is, as Allah created, marriage is created divorce. But if you haven't tried them and you feel that, you wanted to just jump at the cues and in this relationship, this is not a blind date. This is a mithaq ghalid, a heavy covenant that Allah has given to people to live by this dunya. One more question?
No, it's on the same person that asked the question. So he said, or someone, they said, for example, the wife refuses to live with her husband because he got a second wife. So she no longer wants maintenance money. So based on that, she said that she is no longer his wife. And then on your question,
I recommend for that person to get my number and call me, but I will not be accepting his phone call just as offline. He has to sign up and pay the fees so we can help them out. Because, most of the times, people trying to, how can I say, they read somewhere or listen to a sheikh and they say, okay, I got a point, I want to use this against the other side. It doesn't work this way. In couple therapy, you need to be given the chance for each side to speak their mind and look deep into the root causes of these issues and trying to find ways to resolve them. Keep in mind, therapy is not about finding who's right and who's wrong. Therapy is about finding what is really wrong in the relationship. And if you read the Islah, يوفق الله بينهما. As Allah mentioned in the Quran, if they both are willing to reconcile, Allah will make it possible. Now, the pronoun goes to the two parties or goes to the couple. And I strongly believe that it goes back to the couple. The couple wants to work it out, they will be willing to work it out. Allah will facilitate for it. And if they don't want, then this is it. So rather than using the religion as a means to prove your own point, I would recommend for them to use the religion as a way to resolve their unresolved feelings and try to find a way to resolve the problem, inshallah. I think we can conclude, inshallah, because this is the same. The online is the same person reading the same questions, just trying to get something out of my mouth. So alhamdulillah. Any other issues before we conclude, inshallah? جزاك الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. بارك الله فيكم everyone. May Allah help us, inshallah, to.
Brothers, please remain seated. Please remain seated. Just I need 15 seconds of your time. Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh Ayman, for coming all the way from Hamilton, Ontario. And thank you also, Jazakumullah khairan, to Brother Ali Haider from IDRF, the sponsor of tonight's event. And Jazakumullah khairan as well for all you brothers and sisters who showed up and gave the Sheikh the respect and the time. I hope everybody benefited from the lecture. There are a few additional questions that remain unanswered, and inshallah we'll ask the Sheikh to maybe answer them separately. We can post them online. Just a quick announcement: we do have tea and we have pizza. And the deal is a bunch of kids that are lined up at the door, and I've already told them that the brothers who are in the masjid and the sisters who are in the masjid will get first crack at the pizza. So please go ahead to the gym and enjoy the pizza, and the kids that were not listening, you have to go back and
like this. Let's see. So can you post the website so people can see it?
And this one?
Yes, yeah, on this one.